Shape Up today on Hands On.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's back to basics on this 10th anniversary series of Hands On. Each show has a basic theme like patterns or letters, plus a basic how-to lesson on your favorite craft or craft material, like scrapbooking or clay or even wood. Each show also includes another basic, a painting lesson, from choosing paint to preparing your surface. At the end of the next 13 shows, you'll know everything about painting and be on your way to becoming an artist. So on each show, you can look forward to a basic theme, lots of projects, each with 5 steps and 5 ingredients. Keep basic supplies like scissors, markers, toothpicks, and rulers on hand. Remember, be creative and get back to basics with Hands On. Today's back to basic theme is shapes. From rectangles to circles, our projects feature basic shapes and seeing those shapes in other things. Look around you. Everything from a person's face to your pets, even signs and buildings. Once you really start looking, you'll recognize shapes everywhere. Our first project is a shaped flower. Basic shapes make up those giant flower pots. Then we'll have a basic lesson on clay with our guest Linda Peterson. She's an expert on clay and will teach us everything we need to know to make great clay creations. Then Prudy Vannier of the Society of Decorative Painters has our first painting lesson. Today is all about choosing a surface. Then Linda is back to teach us how to make animals. It's all about shapes, of course. Then our last project is a triangle tessellation block. That's a repeating pattern that would continue forever without overlapping or leaving any gaps. So let's get started studying shapes. Take a look at these shaped flowers. Can you find all the shapes? There are diamonds and triangles. There's a circle, teardrops, hearts, and even stars. Let me show you what you'll need. First, we've got fun foam in all different colors. We have some 3D paint markers in all different shades. We have all-purpose glue, a 1/4-inch dowel, some green acrylic paint, and then our basic tools. We have a pencil, some different scissors on hand, a flat brush, a 1/4-inch hole punch, and then we have some cardstock, or you could use a file folder. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to do is to take my dowel rod and paint it. So I'm going to take my flat brush and just dip it in my green paint. And I'm painting over my plate here so that I don't get any paint on my work surface. And you just want to cover the entire dowel. You can hold it and turn it as you're painting. We'll set that aside because I've got one here that's all painted. Now, if your dowel needs to be cut down, get an adult to help you and then you can cut that edge off. So we'll set that aside. Next thing we want to do is to go to our pattern pieces. I've laid out all different patterns for diamonds, circles, hearts, stars, teardrops in all different shapes. You can use the ones in the pattern or you may choose to make your own shapes in all different sizes. Then I've cut each one of these out of my paper and then I've traced them onto either a file folder or a piece of cardstock, something that'll have a little bit more stability so you can trace it easier. Now I'm going to take my scissors. The important thing about cutting is that you want to move your paper or what you're cutting rather than your scissors. So I'm putting my scissors onto the pattern and I'm cutting around. As you can see, I'll get a much smoother line if I turn my cardboard rather than turning my scissors. So I've got my circle shape cut out and I cut out all the shapes that I'd need. Now I'm going to take those individual shapes and I'm going to trace them onto my different colors of foam. I'm going to use a kind of lime green for my circle. So I'm going to take my pencil, trace around the circle shape, and then cut that out. Again, I'm coming in from the outside edge and curving by moving what I'm cutting rather than my scissors. That way you get a nice smooth edge. So I cut out my circle for my center. I'm also going to use this to cut my triangles, which will be the center of my leaf. So I trace those. I'll set that one aside. On the purple, I'm going to cut my teardrop shapes. And I cut 5 or 6 of these, or as many as that are going to fit on your flower. I have the star. Then I'm going to cut a pink heart. And then I'm going to cut my larger leaves, or the base, or my diamond shaped out of the green. So I've got all my shapes cut out here. I've got 5 hearts, I'm going to lay those down because we're going to make the heart flower first. And now we want to put our circle on the center. The most important thing about this is to take your glue and apply the glue to this, let it dry a little bit, then apply your glue to the base and let that dry a little. Because when you're gluing foam to foam, you want glue on both surfaces. So I'm putting glue here and then just a little on the points where it's going to overlap. Now, at home you might want to wait a little bit longer, but I'm going to lay this right down on top. And we've got the base of our flower. Now the next thing we'd want to add is our teardrops. And I'm going to bring these all around, and I'd glue each one of these down. And then lastly, glue my star on top. And that would be the base to my flower. Now let's get that dowel out that we painted earlier. And we're going to do our leaves. For our leaves, we're taking a large diamond shape. I'm going to glue one triangle on each side, on one side. Again, I'll let that sit a little, and I put glue on both surfaces and give that a little time there. I'm going to take one that I've already got glued down, and I'm going to come back with my hole punch. Now, right around here, about an inch in from the edge, I'm going to punch 2 holes right next to each other. And that's what's going to allow us to attach it to the dowel. So I'm going to slide that in, just poke that through, poke it through the other side, and that's how you would attach your leaf shape on. Now you can see, now I haven't painted on those designs. I did that on purpose because I didn't want to be holding wet paint right now. So I'll put that to the side, so we've got our leaves, but let's embellish. I'm going to come across here and draw a design, and this will stay 3D. Now you can see if I've missed any spots, I can just go back in, just use a nice smooth and even pressure. And I'll take my blue color and take this finished heart that I have right here and add some blue dots to the side. Let's prime that again, make sure that the paint's coming out. And we'll add polka dots here. And you can add whatever shapes you'd like or whatever design and outline around. And let's take one more. I'm going to take the green, prime that again, squeeze that out, and I'm going to add dots in my star or a dash. We'll add one at each tip. And then add one in the center. And you can go back and add whatever embellishment or even some glitter. So let's take a look at the finished projects over here. And you can see all the shapes. We made the heart flower, and then look at the triangles and the diamonds on the other 2 flowers.
Today's lesson is all about working with polymer clay. I'm going to show you some of the tips and the techniques that you need to get started. First of all, you need to choose polymer clay. It comes in a variety of different ways. You can see that it comes in a multi-pack of 1-ounce blocks, but it also comes in individual packages. And there's a few safety tips that you need to know as well. You need to protect your work surface. And I've used wax paper. I also work directly on a ceramic tile. This is good because you can keep your projects right on the ceramic tile and then put them right into the oven. You also want to be careful with those tools because they can get really, really sharp. A couple other things that you'll need, keep some wet wipes around. This is good to wipe your hands between colors so that you don't mix colors together. And it's also good to clean up after you're finished working with the clay. You're going to want to have some tools as well. And you can see that we have a variety of tools to choose from. Look around the house. Use things like toothpicks or maybe an old toothbrush. Those are great to texture your characters. The tools that we have here are made specifically for kids, and some of them put patterns in the clay. We have some cookie cutters here. Now you can use cookie cutters from the kitchen as well, but make sure that once you use any tool from the kitchen that you never use it again for food. I have some toothpicks here. Those are good. We're going to use those to poke some holes in some eyes. And then just some other tools. We have a roller here. That's going to help you condition the clay. Now the clay also comes in kits, and this is a really good choice because you can see in this kit it comes with everything that you need. Even comes with a protective work surface, and then there's some push molds too that'll help you make your project. So it's a really good choice for beginners. Now look at this big silver machine. Don't let it intimidate you. This is called a pasta machine. And later on, as you get better, you'll want to have one around because this will help you condition the clay, mix colors, and even make little flat sheets so you can put clothes on your characters. Now, let's talk a little bit about conditioning because that's very important. If you think about cookies, when you're making cookies with your parents, you need all those ingredients mixed up. The clay actually has ingredients that needs to be mixed up as well. And that way your project is nice and durable and your arms and legs don't fall off after baking. So we're going to take a block of clay. I've already taken the packaging off. What you want to do is you just want to slice down. You can roll this in your hands to make it warm because warmer clay is softer. But this is so soft out of the package, and you're just going to roll it with your brayer. Okay, and you'll fold it over, and you'll keep doing this until it gets soft and pliable. Now, the next thing, if you want to continue conditioning, the clay will make colors. So you can take different colors of clay, twist them together like I have here, make swirls, marbleized clay, and then you can create really fun characters like this little lizard that I have here. After you finish with your projects, you'll want to make sure to store it properly. You can use a plastic container or you can use Ziploc baggies. One thing you want to make sure is that you keep it away from the heat. And if you do that, it'll last a long, long time. Now, in order to make your characters hard, you'll need an oven. So have an adult help you with this. The instructions for baking are on the package of clay, but typically you're going to bake it at 265 degrees for 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how big your project is. Wait till it cools because a warm clay is also a brittle clay and you'll have arms and legs fall off your characters. It's just a good rule of thumb. So join me later in the program as I come back to show you a really fun project. You can also get ideas from different books on the market.
Our first lesson on painting is how to choose a surface. Over here I have watercolor paper. Most watercolorists use paper. It comes in pound weight. Next, we have canvases. Primed canvas is what's used for oil painters. It's primed with gesso. You can prime your own or you can buy just about any size. Metal, any metal surface is paintable. You can use metal paint on it or you can use a special sealer on it so that any paint will adhere to it. Terracotta, I have a terracotta pot here. I use special paint on this that's used for outdoor things. It's good on pots like this or concrete. This pot has been on my patio for 3 years and it looks perfect, doesn't it? There's paper mache, available at most craft shops in all kinds of shapes and sizes. It's inexpensive and it's lightweight. And fabric. Fabric is a great surface to paint on. Over here I have a tote and a t-shirt. You use special fabric paint for that to make it washable. My favorite surface is wood. And wood is available in any kind of size and shape and also various kinds of wood. This one is pine. You can see the grain is pretty dominant and it's kind of a soft wood. Basswood is a very good surface. It's harder, so if you sand that, it makes a very, very smooth surface for painting. This one is a birch ply. Birch is very clear, very hard. Plywood is made by layering, and so the sides have a stripe on it, and you have to decide if you want the stripe to show in a painting or cover it with paint. It's one of those things you consider with your project. When you look for wood, if at all possible, see if you can find out if it's kiln dried. If it's kiln dried, it's a less likely chance that it will warp when you're finished or crack. I've had some projects that have done that. Also look at the grain. If you like a lot of grain, that's great. If you don't, you might go with the ply or the basswood. Check for knots. If you have a knot hole in the middle of where your focal point's going to be, might not be such a good thing. You don't want Grandma's portrait with a knot on her cheek. But in some places I like knots. So check carefully for the best possible thing for your project. And that's the end of lesson number 1.
Remember I told you we'd be back to make a really fun project. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to make this really cute little teddy bear. But before we begin, I want to show you my 6 simple shape technique. Because once you learn all these individual shapes, you can create any character that you can imagine. First of all, we're going to start off with a ball. Everything starts with a ball, and from that you can roll into a log. When you roll one edge, you create a taper log. These are good for arms and legs. Then we have the rounded triangle. This is like a triangle that has really soft corners. This is great for the head. And then the teardrop or cone, we use those for the bodies. And then the cube, it's probably used the least, but we do use little squares for patches. So let me show you how to create all of these simple shapes. First of all, I want you to notice your hand. You have a rounded area in your hand, and that's where you're going to place your clay to make your ball. So just swirl your hand around in a circle and you create your ball. That's the most basic shape that you can make. From the ball, again, we're going to start with the ball in the hand, put it down on a flat surface. Remember, I use a ceramic tile, and you just roll it back and forth. This creates the log. Now, let's take this log one step further, and we're only going to roll one side. This makes it into a tapered log. A tapered log is thicker at one end than it is the other. And then just dab on your flat surface to make that end real blunt. Let's set that aside there. Now we're going to go on to the rounded triangle. Again, we're going to start out with our ball. Now, we're going to place and just roll one side with the side of our other palm and then press it flat on the table. And this creates our little rounded triangle shape. It's kind of hard to see, but remember, you just want soft edges. Then for our cone, it's kind of like the tapered log, except we're going to round out the bottom a little bit more. It's not so blunt in the end. And when we tip it up and press it against the table, that's where we get our body shape. Then we'll go back to this ball here and we'll just tap it on the table and roll it so that we create our cube. So those are the 6 simple shapes. Once you master these and once you get really familiar with these, you can make anything that you want to. You can notice here, I've taken, if you want to get very, very basic, this little inchworm, he's just made with different sizes of balls. And then this little snake, you can roll up the clay at the end of your session and create little snakes, different colors. That's just a really fun little project. So now let's see how these balls and logs relate to making a bear. Look at this sheet here. You can see that I've used all the different shapes. I've used the teardrop, the tapered logs for the arms and the legs, small balls for the ears, and then a rounded triangle for the head. Let's see how this works when we actually make a bear. I have a ball here that's about an inch, and you're going to roll this again on one side. Remember, we're making a cone. That's the body. Press it flat against the work surface. Now I'm doing this upside down, so you're going to do this towards you. And you just kind of want to imagine that he's just kind of laying there. He's a little lazy. His belly's all full. Now he needs some arms and some legs. So this is a little smaller ball. It's about a ½ inch in size, and you're going to roll it into a tapered log. Press it flat and press it on the front. And I have some other ones made here as well. Now, if you make these bigger, you give them an extra character. It doesn't matter the size. If it looks too big, it is. If it looks too small, it is. So we have 4 tapered logs for the little bear here. Now, this is the fun part because this actually gives him the personality. We're going to take our ball and we're going to roll it into a rounded triangle. Remember to press it down flat a little bit. And I'm actually going to set him aside because I've got another little ball that I'm shaping into a triangle. This is his nose. So let me pick him up here. Let's stick his nose on. I'm going to turn him around and look at me for a second. Put his nose on. If you don't like the shape of your head, you can just roll it up and do it over again. Now I have a little toothpick here that we're going to poke in some holes for some eyes. And we'll give him a little smidgen of black for his nose. Okay. So now you can see I have the head, but he needs some ears. He needs to hear what's going on. Let's take and add a couple little balls there. And we're going to put the toothpick down into his head, and I'm going to actually break a little piece of it off. This keeps your head stable. Okay, so we have our little bear made. Now, you notice that we have made this from one block of clay. I have a little bit of clay left over. I'm just going to put that in my Ziploc baggie for the end. And I can take my little tray, stick it right in the oven, bake it at 265 degrees for 30 minutes. If you look over here, you see all the other little variations of bears that we've done. This is using the same technique, just a few different colors. We have the polar bear and the panda bear. Then you can see if you add a little bit of fur, you can make horses, turkeys, beavers, anything that you can imagine. We also have the little, the puppy, the mouse. These are all made with the 6 Simple Shape technique. And for extra ideas, there's lots of books out on the market, or use your own imagination.
Our last project is the tessellation block. This is a recurring pattern made from a single shape, and in this case we've used triangles. But if you look really closely, you can also see larger triangles made up of the 4 inner triangles. Let me take right here, if you see the 3 green with the center one, and we're using an equilateral triangle. So let's take a look at what you'll need. We started out with some basic colors of cardstock. We have a large sheet of foam board. We're using a glue stick. We have 2 different kinds of glitter glue here, and we're going to use both of them. And then we have our basics. We have 12 inches of ribbon, a sponge brush, scissors, a ruler, and a pencil. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is to create a pattern for a 2-inch equilateral triangle. So I've got my ruler here, and you can measure off and you can cut out that pattern. Now you can take this and then cut out all different colors. We've used 3 colors here of the shape, or I'm going to show you a little shortcut. You can also do a whole sheet, and we have a pattern sheet that's included with your instructions where we've created all of these triangles by using our ruler, measuring across. Now since this is a 2-inch equilateral triangle, it's only 1 3/4 inches from here to here. So we draw a line every 1 3/4 and then draw our cross lines all across like there. But like I said, the pattern's there for you. We'd lay that on our paper here. And if we go down to one here, I've got it all traced out, and then I'm just going to cut out my various shapes. So I'll keep cutting until I have a whole stack of the 3 different colors. I'll set that aside. Let's move here to our paper. I'm going to take my paper, and to get started, I've taken a larger sheet of paper that's larger than my finished project. And I'm going to draw lines, as I said, remember 1 3/4 inches apart. So I've gone down on the bottom, and I've drawn a line, a dot every 1 3/4, moved it down, and 1 3/4 all the way down the line. And then I've done the same at the top. The reason for this is that I'm going to draw a line between these 2 dots, and that way I'll make sure that they're perfectly straight. So if I put my ruler down, and I'm going to draw a line. Now I want to start building my pattern. You can draw a pattern just like ours, or you can choose anything you'd like. So I'm going to put my yellow squares down yellow rectangles, yellow triangles, and I'm going to lay each one of these down on the corner and do my first row and start building. You don't want to glue anything down in the beginning because you're going to kind of play with your design. Now I've chosen next, I'm going to go with the lime green, but I'm going to alternate lime green and dark green. Now you can do whatever pattern you'd like, and it'll all make a different tessellation design. And we continue on here. Now I'm going to go back to the yellow shape and draw another. Now as you can see, I'm always lining up my corner with the edge of my lines. And when we come back and start gluing down, that'll become important. Now this next thing that we could do is, instead of putting the same green here, which would bring a green line all the way down, I can put a dark green here and then get our pattern. So let's move over to this one where I've got all the pieces laid out. I've glued them all down except for these end pieces. Take my glue, I'm just using a glue stick to glue down the final pieces. And then I cut a 9 by 12 square, so I have a standard shape. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to take all of my, my different glitter glues. I'm going to show you both. One, I'm just laying out this, and it's going to dry, and I can take my brush. Or the second way is to take the glue here, which is a different type of glitter glue, and brush it on. It's just giving it a little bit more interest. And when this dries, the clear, the glue part won't even show. That gives just a little bit more finish to my block. And if we move to this one, let me move this out of the way. I've got one that's all dry, and I've cut a piece of foam board. It might be a great idea to have an adult help you cut this because foam core is a little bit more difficult to cut. I'm going to lay this on top and then just attach a ribbon with some pins at the top. So why don't we take a look at the finished one while I finish gluing this one on. And that's what a tessellation block looks like. Thanks for joining us today on Hands On. We only had time for a few basic shapes, but there are so many shapes around you. I hope you'll start looking at the world around you in a new way, one made up of shapes. Next time our show is about patterns. Hope to see you then on Hands On.
Projects and ideas for today's show are available on the web at craftsforkids.com. This show is number 1001. Hands On is sponsored in part by Elmer's Products, Inc., manufacturers of a variety of adhesives, arts and crafts, and office products for use at home, school, or business for over 60 years. www.elmers.com.